Training camp is officially underway in San Francisco, and if you're a Warriors fan, there's already reason to be optimistic, at least for now. With the full roster back on the court, the initial vibes coming out of practice have been encouraging, especially after hearing from head coach Steve Kerr. The biggest takeaway? He's speaking openly about finding a real role for Jonathan Kuminga in the offense. And let's be honest, after all the drama behind the scenes last season, just hearing that is already a positive shift. Kerr didn't sugarcoat the struggles from last year. He admitted that he had a hard time figuring out how to fit Kuminga into the system. But now, with how the roster is constructed, he sees new opportunities. And about his name constantly popping up during off-season trade talks involving Kuminga, he brushed it off, saying it's all just part of how negotiations go in the NBA. Like Steph Curry said on Media Day, business is business. And in the NBA, that means navigating tough decisions, rumors, and all the noise that comes with it. What really stood out, though, was Kerr emphasizing the momentum the team built during the final stretch of last season. He wants that energy, the one from those last 31 games, the battles against Houston, Minnesota, and so on, to carry into training camp and into the new season. That's the tone being set early on, despite a few big changes to the roster. One of the biggest adjustments was saying goodbye to Kevin Looney. His rebounding, toughness, and low-post presence were a staple for years. But this new version of the Warriors seems to be pivoting to something different. And that's where a name like Al Horford comes into play. Kerr didn't name-drop Horford directly, but it was pretty clear he was the player being referenced when he spoke about finally having a big man who can stretch the floor and shoot threes, something this team has never truly had at the 5 spot. Think about it. Over the years, the Warriors have leaned on guys like Looney, Andrew Bogut, Zaza Pachulia, and briefly DeMarcus Cousins when he still had something left. None of them were known for their shooting range. Kerr pointed out that he's never coached a true big who made a name for himself as a legit three-point shooter. And when you think of centers in the NBA who can do that, 2 names immediately come to mind: Al Horford and Brook Lopez. Kristaps Porzingis might be another example, but his style is different. Less physical, more finesse, and less of a traditional anchor in the paint. Horford, though, brings more than just shooting. He brings experience, basketball IQ, and a championship mentality. Kerr highlighted the value of having guys on the roster who understand what it takes to win at the highest level. Horford's been to the finals twice and won a title in 2024. Jimmy Butler, who's now also part of this squad, has been to the finals twice as well, though he came up short in 2023 and 2020. And then there's Steph, Draymond, and Clay, the championship core, who've made it to the finals 6 times together. That's a locker room filled with guys who know how to get back to the mountaintop. Add to that a few younger names like Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, who already won a ring in their rookie seasons. There's championship DNA all over this team. But the youth is going to have to step up in a big way this season, and one of the biggest question marks in that category is Quinton Post. The 7-footer is still the only true big man on the roster, and he's coming off a rookie year where he shot 40% from 3. That's impressive, but now the pressure's on to take the next step. Sophomore slumps are real in the NBA. Sometimes guys cruise through their rookie year and then hit a wall in year 2, a wall they might have hit earlier if they hadn't flown under the radar. Kerr didn't sound overly concerned, but he did make it clear that expectations are higher now. Post is going to be asked to do more, play smarter, and take on a bigger role off the bench. One really interesting detail that came out recently: Post won a chess blitz tournament in Las Vegas over the summer. Now, that might sound random, but it actually says a lot. Chess is all about strategy, patience, and thinking several moves ahead. That kind of mindset is incredibly valuable for an NBA center. Understanding how your positioning impacts the flow of the offense or defense, knowing how to manipulate space, draw defenders out. These are chess moves on a basketball court. Post is going to be battling against guys like Rudy Gobert, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, some of the smartest, most experienced bigs in the league. But if he can use that mental edge, stretch the floor, and play chess while others are playing checkers, he can carve out a real role. Think about it. Pulling a guy like Gobert out to the 3-point line opens up lanes for Jimmy and Kuminga to attack. And learning from someone like Horford, that could be huge. Horford has gone toe-to-toe with the best bigs of this era. Duncan, Shaq, Dirk, Jokic, AD, you name it. He's been there. That kind of mentorship is priceless. And the timing works out perfectly. As the season progresses, Horford's minutes will be managed to keep him fresh for the playoffs. That's going to give Post more chances to step up, especially after the All-Star break. February and March could be his window to prove that he's not just a tall shooter from Boston College. He's a real NBA contributor. A smart, tough, versatile big who can space the floor and play within the system. Now, while all of that is encouraging, not everything coming out of camp has been positive. One frustrating development involves DeAnthony Melton. He was signed to a 2-year deal with a player option, but now we're hearing that he's still rehabbing an ACL issue from last season and has to be reevaluated. And that immediately raises the question, why sign a guy who isn't fully healthy? It gets even more confusing when you consider Seth Curry's situation. Curry is on an Exhibit 9 contract, meaning he could be waived at the end of training camp unless there's a roster move that frees up space. And this is where things get frustrating. You've got Melton, who's still hurt and unavailable for at least another month, and Curry, who's healthy and coming off a season where he shot 45% from 3. That's elite shooting. That's the kind of spacing every team needs, especially off the bench. Sure, Melton brings youth, athleticism, and defensive upside, but if he's not ready to play, what's the point? You assume that a player being signed past is physical, but here we are, rehabbing an injury, getting reevaluated 4 weeks into the season. That's not where you want a key bench piece to be when the season tips off. And even if he gets cleared in a month, by that time the team will already have games under their belt, rotations forming, chemistry building. It's not ideal. Curry, on the other hand, is a sniper. He's a plug-and-play shooter who knows how to fit in around stars, doesn't need the ball in his hands, and spaces the floor like few others in the league. If he has a strong preseason, he might force the front office's hand. Maybe Melton gets waived. Maybe someone else is moved to make room. But as of now, it's a strange decision that leaves a lot of fans scratching their heads. While training camp has just begun and the vibes are largely positive, reality is already creeping in. This roster still has serious decisions to make. The competition for minutes is real, the depth chart is packed, and even though the core veterans bring leadership and playoff experience, it's the fringe guys and young talent who might end up deciding how high this team can climb. One injury, one trade, one breakout performance in the preseason could tilt the balance of this entire rotation. And that's exactly why Coach Kerr is watching every possession closely right now. The most intriguing storyline heading into camp isn't just about Kuminga's role or how Horford's shooting changes the offense. It's about who's really ready to take that next leap. Moses Moody, for instance, is entering a critical year. There's no more room for potential. The time is now. He's shown flashes, big playoff minutes, clutch moments, but the consistency has never fully come. If he's ever going to lock in a defined role, this is the season. Same goes for Brandon Podziemski. Last year, he was one of the few rookies in the league who looked poised and controlled from day one. But being poised isn't enough anymore. Now it's about impact. Can he defend at a high level? Can he become more than just a connector on offense? That's what the staff wants to see, and that's what will separate him from guys like Lester Quinones or even veterans hanging around the rotation. And let's not forget about the trade factor. This roster, as deep as it is in theory, still might not be what we see come February. If guys don't perform, if chemistry isn't right, or if injuries pile up, the front office will have to move fast. That's especially true when it comes to managing salary. There are players with team-friendly contracts, others on expiring deals, and a few with uncertain roles. Golden State has never been shy about pulling the trigger when the right deal presents itself. And with the new CBA placing pressure on luxury tax teams, it wouldn't be a shock if we see a rotation player move mid-season for flexibility. One name that keeps floating around in that context is Gary Payton II. Loved by the locker room, respected by the coaching staff, and one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, no doubt. But with his injury history and the emergence of other younger wings, there's a real question about how many minutes he'll actually see and whether his contract becomes part of a trade package later on. Same with Corey Joseph, another veteran who's reliable, but not necessarily vital to the team's long-term plans. If Podziemski and Quinones outperform expectations, those are minutes that might be redistributed quickly. And that's the reality in Golden State now. No one outside of Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, and Horford is guaranteed anything. The rest of the roster? It's open season. Another key element that's going to define this next stretch is how the team gels defensively. Offense is obviously important, especially with the addition of more shooters, but the Warriors' identity has always come from their defensive engine. That's what fueled the championship runs. The question now is whether they can replicate that kind of defensive intensity with a much older roster and several new faces. Draymond is still the anchor, no question, but he's no longer the same player who could switch 1 through 5 for 35 minutes a night. His role will need to be managed carefully, especially early in the season. That puts added pressure on the likes of Kuminga and Moody to step up as versatile wing defenders, and on someone like Quinton to protect the rim without fouling. Horford can help there. His positioning and timing are elite, but he can't be the primary shot blocker anymore, not with the workload they're likely to give him in the first half of the season. That's why the coaching staff is placing so much emphasis on team defense right now. Rotations, communication, closeouts, everything is being drilled hard. Because the margin for error this year is smaller. The West is stacked. Teams like Denver, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and Phoenix are all loaded. There's no coasting. If the Warriors are going to make a deep playoff run, they need to build habits now. And that's something Kerr's been vocal about. Not just relying on the veterans to carry the load, but demanding accountability from everyone, especially the younger players who want more responsibility. It's also why preseason games will matter more than usual this year. These aren't throwaway games anymore. They're additions. For players like Seth Curry, Quinones, Post, even Melton if he somehow returns early. These games could decide who makes the final roster and who doesn't. And for guys who are already guaranteed contracts, the preseason is about carving out their niche. Where do they fit? Are they shooters? Secondary playmakers? Defensive specialists? Rebounders? Everyone needs to define a role and prove they can execute it consistently. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. A whirlwind of speculation has erupted across the basketball world as whispers intensify about the newest possible superstar landing in Golden State. Sources close to the matter suggest that Victor Wembanyama, the prodigious French sensation whose talent has captivated scouts and fans alike, is rumored to be signing with the Golden State Warriors, signaling what some are calling a new era for the franchise. While nothing has been officially confirmed, insiders hint Thing Tall, with extraordinary mobility, a deft shooting touch, and defensive instincts that seem almost preternatural, Wembanyama has been compared to generational talents, and joining a championship-caliber team could accelerate his meteoric rise. Golden State, known for its lethal combination of sharp shooting and high basketball IQ, could be a perfect stage for Wembanyama to both showcase and refine his skills. Rumors suggest that the synergy between him and the Warriors' core, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, might create a pairing that could dominate headlines for years to come. Industry insiders say the discussions have moved beyond preliminary talks, hinting at an imminent announcement that could send shockwaves through the NBA. Fans have flooded social media with speculative lineups, trade analyses, and what-if scenarios, each one more tantalizing than the last. Imagine the Warriors' dynamic backcourt suddenly complemented by a towering presence capable of stretching defenses and redefining matchups. This is the vision that's setting tongues wagging in locker rooms and living rooms alike. Skeptics caution that high-profile rumors often inflate expectations, but the sheer volume of chatter surrounding Wembanyama's potential arrival cannot be ignored. If the whispers bear fruit, Golden State might be stepping into a transformative period, blending championship experience with unprecedented potential. As the NBA world holds its breath, one thing seems certain. Wherever Victor Wembanyama lands, the game will never be quite the same again. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.